In this video, I'm going to be covering exactly 5 stages of analysis on Mount Fuji in Le Mans Ultimate with increasing complexity. This will also come with a lap comparison between mine and my best friend Ethan's, who may be more around your pace. If you look at the bottom of your screen at the bar showing the amount of time left on the video, you will see the exact timestamps of each stage for easy access, though I highly encourage watching each stage progressively as they will continue to build on each other. So with that covered, we can get into my lap, but fair warning, I'm no alien, and this is definitely not a perfect lap in any sense, with maybe 2 to 3 tenths still in it, primarily in the first sector. I came up with the idea watching my friend Ethan's lap back and trying to help him a little bit, and I thought that it would be fun to maybe make a video comparing, because I wish I had something like this whenever I was trying to get quicker. So yeah, with that covered, let's get into it. That was
Was that
beautiful.
good?
That was beautiful.
Was
That
that
was
good?
amazing. That was amazing. That was amazing.
Can I hear it?
Okay. This is the next section of the video. We have covered already my individual hot lap with nothing. I've covered my friend Ethan's hot lap with his own audio, which I found pretty funny, which is deserved. And now we will be covering my lap but with an analysis over it of what I'm doing personally. And then after this one, we will be covering exactly what I'm doing differently to Ethan. So I think let's just get into it. Obviously, coming down into turn 1, I shift up at around 255, 256 usually. I think I waited too long on this one though. Coming into here, my reference point is almost always this brown spot on the left right here on the grass. So it's hard to see when you're coming in, but it's usually right around here. You can see in this area, this brown spot right before the 100 typically is around my breaking point. You could push it a little bit deeper, but I found that it's dependent on your line that you take. So in this lap right here, I end up breaking a little bit early, so I take a slightly wider line here. If I were to break later, I'd be taking a slightly deeper line into this corner, drive it in a little bit more, have more space to really drive it in. Hard on power and apex. So my minimum speed around here is around 70, and you want to be hard on the power. And this is a big one I've noticed in the McLaren is whenever you try to push the power in a lower gear like this, it will slide on you. First, especially second, I've noticed, really slides on you. First actually feels like it has a little bit more traction sometimes. So really out onto here, you see I'm getting a little bit of a slide. You can run wide onto this part of the track and really run these outside tires onto this white line. But if you do that, there's a very good chance of you getting caught out and not cutting it back into here, because you can gain about 3 or 4 hundredths, maybe even half a tenth, just by taking a tighter line, which you'll see me do right here. I cut right across into the white line right here and get as close as I can to save time. That's just saving minimal track distance. Coming into here, I'm going to be opening this up as much as I can, and I break right in between the 100 and the 50, maybe slightly more on the 50 side. But what's more, I don't know what I'm listening to. There's something going on. I don't know if you can hear that, but anyways, what I'm focusing on here is breaking right in between the 50 and the 100, and then I'm going to be trailing in early, very, very early. So I'm aiming for the curb right here. If you avoid this curb altogether, you will absolutely notice that there's a major difference in the time that you can gain. Primarily because this curb carries you a little bit more. It kind of causes a little bit more rotation. But also I've just noticed that, man, there's a sound that's going on in my room. It's very annoying. Anyways, something I've also noticed is just that extra track distance right here. You can save so much time. You want to trail in very hard, very harshly. So in the McLaren, the braking theory behind it is not one where it's like the Porsche where you brake really hard, release a little bit as you start to turn in, really get the rotation, and then drop it mid-corner and let it sort of do its own thing. You trail in very deep, very hard, and then you almost drop it immediately because you get a lot of snappy rotation in this. So that's what you see me do right here. Brake very hard, drop it almost immediately. I have a little bit of brake carried into it to keep the weight on the front. I have a feeling doing less of that will carry you more minimum speed, and in total you'll get a higher minimum speed, better exit, hopefully, if you rotate it enough. Also, cutting this maybe a little bit more. I was a little bit slow through here, which you can see I don't track out wide to the exit, which is definitely a major time loss, and including that, that's where I lose most of my time, honestly. Through that, and then through this one as well. Thankfully, that noise just stopped. Anyways, next thing right here that I've seen, actually, I'm not gonna even talk about my friend Ethan's lap yet. We're just gonna watch this. I take a very tight inside line. My goal for this corner is drive it in smoothly. As I start to turn the wheel more, I'm loading the car up. Okay. So you can see on this left outside part right here, you have this white line that is around my goal of where I'm trying to lift, but it's also dependent on my line. It's dependent on how much speed I'm sending in, dependent on how I ended up coming into the corner. So you'll see me do that. Just a little bit of brake, just a tiny bit to keep the car kind of planted on this line that I want it to follow right here. You can actually see it on the ground. You can see this slightly dark patch. That's semi what I'm following here. And see, I'm just tapping the throttle, trying to get the car to keep the minimum speed up as much as you can. Minimum speed is everything through this corner. And then as early as you can, make sure you use this outside part of this curb right here, because you can use a lot of that. It's a very V-shaped line, and get power down as hard and early as you can. I didn't open this up enough. You could have definitely opened it up a little bit more and came back, but it's okay. Coming into this, braking a good chunk before this. There was no amazing reference point here. Sorry. There's no amazing reference point here. It's more of I break whenever in my personal FOV. It's going to be different depending on everybody. Once I start to see this bridge start to disappear on the top, typically is when I break. Trail in very hard, very early. Down to first gear. I've seen a lot of people just run straight second. Possible. I like first though because it gives me more traction on exit, but it might be killing my minimum speed. Trail in hard and early. I actually missed the apex a little bit right here. Another time loss. You could have rotated a little bit harder, got a slightly later apex for better exit, but it's okay. I think early apex is actually okay right here. A little bit late on power, in my opinion, for me. Tracking in second, and this is a big thing that I've noticed that a lot of people do. They keep a lot of steering lock once they get into second, and they really try to power out right here. See, I even got a slide right there just from this amount of steering lock, but I've seen people have almost 90 degrees, like Ethan. I'm not gonna comment. I want to comment on it, but I'm going to save it for the for the next stage. But you can see, I'll put down my power, try to unwind my steering as much as possible, and big thing, you see, I could have tracked out more. By the way, I lost more time right here, but do not touch this outside curb. You can touch the white line, but do not touch the outside curb. You will get caught on it, and you will lose time. It's not worth it. You just naturally will lose like a tenth and a half just by touching that. Don't do it. Speeding up a little bit, just take a tight line, minimize track distance. Coming into here, my braking point, if you look at it's a little bit harder as you get close to it, so it's a iffy one. See that little dark patch in the grass right there? I move my cursor. That's usually what I'm aiming for. Or you can say right after the bridge. And so it's very easy to brake too late right here, so it's better to be slightly early than slightly late, in my opinion. Coming in here, brake very straight. I had a slightly late, early apex here. But your goal should be go slightly deeper, cut back a little bit harder, and aim to be a little bit later on this apex. Make sure you cut this curb. You can gain so much time by not having to go completely around it. Save so much time. I put some slight power down right before the curb to try to shift the balance back a little bit and keep the car a little bit settled, and also just earlier power. You can power out a little bit harder. Hard on power, and you can see how much. Now watch this. This is extremely important. Look how much steering lock I use into this corner. I use a ton of steering lock because I'm not using very much brakes. And then all I'm using to actually get that rotation as I turn the steering lock, or well, as I turn the steering wheel, is I'm able to drop throttle because I think of it like this, right? Think of your throttles and brake as sources of rotation. If you are using the brakes to rotate, it's an extreme multiplier of your steering wheel, of the way that you treat the car, your downshifts, of everything. The throttle is somewhat similar, usually in reverse. When you start to place down power, it takes away that rotation. But then, if you're already at that minimum amount of rotation, if you start to release your throttle, you're going to, technically speaking, be adding more weight to the front, which will amplify your rotation. So more weight on the front will amplify your rotation, meaning that if I drop my throttle right here, right there, and add a tiny bit of brake, I'm getting just enough rotation to be able to throw it in, get early on power here, and really to power out. I think I've seen some people use second for better traction out here because I've noticed you typically get better exits with second. That is definitely something that would be viable to try, and I would definitely recommend trying that. I run first usually for better traction out of here, especially in the race, for just making sure I'm not cooking the tires completely, but it's probably viable. Coming into here, my usual braking point is usually about the feel of just seeing the distance between this corner, but I do also use this reference of this white line right here. Usually right on the white line I try to brake. And this is something that is very McLaren specific when it comes to my lap. It is extremely McLaren specific because of how you have to drive this car and throw it into the corner. You will see how I brake it coming into this corner. You'll see I hit the brakes, hold it in ABS. I'm inside of ABS, and then I drop it and just keep a little bit to keep the car rotating. Watch. Spike the brakes, hold just a little bit, and you can actually get more coasting mid-corner because I killed off a lot of minimum speed right there, which is definitely my fault. I could have driven it in harder with my steering as well. Honestly, I could have just driven into this corner much harder in general, but that's, once again, this is not a perfect lap by any means. There's a lot of time in this. But coming into here, you can see even now, also something I've noticed in Le Mans Ultimate, especially in corners like on Spa and such, having a little bit of steering already added right here and just tapping it, it loads up the car more initially. From my perspective, that's how I'm thinking of it in my head. And it's also just driving in a little bit harder. Don't have too much steering lock because that's going to take away from your braking potential. Oh, my friend's playing white knuckle. It's going to take away from your braking potential if you have too much steering lock. Just a little bit as you start to come into the corner is okay. So you see I drive in, I'll brake at the white line, brake super hard initially, get into ABS so it's stable, and then drop it quickly to maintain good minimum speed. This is all about minimum speed. Hard on power on the curb. Make sure you are analyzing where you are in the track, and you know that if you place down that power, you're not going to get too much. Another thing that I've noticed and that I'm doing is if you ride on this curb like enough, it'll pull you to the left. It will pull you, which you can see happens right here. And then that brings me into a tighter line right here, which means I can brake really hard, avoid all of this extra track distance while still maintaining my minimum speed. And if I cut this enough, I've also seen some people like Luke Whitehead take a very even tighter line and even cut all of this right here and track it out, which honestly is probably quicker because he is quicker than me. I'm going to assume that he probably did that better than me. So, and it makes sense that it is. But I avoid this curb. Early on power, second gear for a good exit. Careful on traction on exit. Ride this all the way out. Now immediately you're going to bring it all the way back over here as much as you can. Don't go too wide, but as much as you can. Try to stay on this the rubber part of the track here. Open this up as much as I can. Braking around at this white line right here. Maybe a little bit before. Coming in hard. I use first gear, initial, and then short shift to second for a better exit. Sometimes I keep it in first and I rev it out completely, just depending on the situation, how I've set up the corner, if I feel like I have enough traction to power out, if I want to get exit, whatever. Lots of nuance to this, but you'll see I take a fairly tight line. This one, it looks like I rev out first and semi-short shift to second, but if I would have taken a slightly wider line, which I probably should have, I think that there's probably a little bit more time by braking a little bit later, going slightly later, and then just second earlier, and then powering out with a straighter wheel would have given me a much better line. But I've seen a lot of people, including Ethan, they go super deep into here, they end up all the way on this side of the track, way over here, and then they cut back really hard and get a really good exit. Don't get me wrong, but they are losing all of this track distance on the inside. And that's something I've noticed. In a super understeery car like the McLaren, which does not want to turn, especially in fixed setup, so many people prioritize going super, super wide and getting good exits rather than trying to just cut the track distance. If you cut the track distance in the end, you're going to be covering less meters, and in turn, it's going to help you shave off that time. Okay? So taking a slightly tighter line right here, and I could have gotten a better exit, but it's okay. And of course, just take my normal gears, shifting up at 226, and then yeah, there's the 140.8. And you know, let's also include my first sector of this next lap that I ruined, because I brake slightly later right here, much deeper, take a slightly tighter line. I almost pretty much the same minimum speed. I don't track out too wide. Take this tight inside line like I was talking about, right? Now coming into this, you're gonna see how much more speed I send through here. Watch this. A little bit later on brakes, send so much more speed. Use more curb, track all the way out, and now take a tight inside line, lift at the white line, really carrying it in. A little bit of brakes, early power, stabbing it, hard out on exit, track a little bit more wide, coming into here, braking late. First gear, slightly later on apex, powering out. Look how close I get to the white line, even closer than my last lap, but I do not touch it. And see, that right there gained me about 2/10 just alone. That would have been a 40.6, maybe even a 40.5, because we're pretty close to 40.7 already on my previous lap. And then I completely screwed it up because I missed the curb, and I lost 2/10 right there. So that should be a testament to how much time you can lose by not using that inside curb. And I just broke a little bit late, just a little bit. You can actually see, it doesn't even look like I broke too late. I broke actually at the dark spot on the track right here, rather than right before it, and just that is enough to completely kill it. So, that is my analyzation of my lap. Obviously, there's a lot to go into it, and slow down if you need to. Take your time to analyze it and even write down some things if you really want to take it seriously. And hopefully, it'll make slightly more sense, so don't feel overwhelmed whenever I start to compare it to my friend Ethan's, because you're going to start seeing resemblances between what I am doing and what my friend Ethan is doing, and you can start to compare and contrast and think, okay, that's the difference. What am I doing, and where do I fit into that, and how can I start to move more towards a quicker lap time rather than moving away from the things that are making me slower? That's the reason of this whole video, and I really hope that that's something that can be taken away. So, that is my part of this, and now we will be moving on to the Ethan analyzation of this. So, yeah. Hope you're excited for that. Okay, and now for the final part of this video, I'm going to be analyzing both laps next to each other. This is the best setup I can get, I'm sorry. Um, and I'm going to be just running through this very quickly as I don't want to make this video too long and bore people, but then again, I want to show the exact differences with a writing tool so I can actually show you exactly. So we're gonna play both of these and get them right down to where they're pretty much at the line. Let's see, breaking right there, and that was probably too much. Let's get them to right here. Okay, first thing I want to point out is our braking zones. I wish I could do slow motion for this, but as we can see, we are braking pretty much at the same point here. Pulling this up, you can see that right here, I'm aiming for this brown spot right here, a little bit before it. Ethan, once again, is also aiming for this brown spot right here. Both of us are aiming for the same brown spot because I've given him this exact idea before, basically telling him, make sure you brake there. Moving further into this, we can look directly at Ethan's lap here. Coming in. First things first, notice that he's doing a similar mistake I am, where I brake deep. We're both putting on a lot of lock, but we're both still at pretty much 100% brakes. We're both doing this, and then he's doing a more extreme version where he is not keeping the brakes and trailing them in, keeping the weight on the front and getting that extra slowdown potential. That's why he has to brake a tiny bit earlier than me, and I was also struggling on the exit of mid-corner because he's not rotating it as much. So I want you to look primarily down in this area right here. Look at his brake trace, right? I want you to watch as he's going to hold it at like this level right here, and then it's going to immediately drop down, and then he's going to hold it like this. So if we were doing an exact brake trace, it looks something along the lines of this. Let's say this is his brake, right? We're going to be coming in, braking at 100%, holding, 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 and as he starts to come into the corner, instead of slowly dropping, what he's going to do is he's, let me put this in green to show you that this is the correct way, would be to drop it like this, and then like that, somewhat similar to that, right? Instead, what he's deciding to do is he's coming in, and he's dropping really quickly. Why? I don't know why it's so skinny. That's okay. He's coming and dropping it super quickly, and then holding it like this, this, like that. That's what he's doing, and I'm going to show you exactly him doing that right now. You can watch over here on the left. Oh, forgot to switch it. Sorry. Apologies. You can see, comes in, puts in a lot of steering lock. Notice, then he starts to turn the steering to keep the car stable, keep it from going straight on. He's scared of holding too much brakes, it going straight on because he's turning while too much brakes are held on, which kills his ability to stop the car. That's what he's scared of. He's avoiding it, so he puts down just a little bit to keep slowing down because he's missed out on that opportunity to rotate and slow down earlier on. He misses his power point, and then he's getting out of corner slower, later, and with a worse line, with more steering lock. Now, taking all that into account, let's look at mine on the left here. Braking in a straight line, slowly start to come in, and then I drop it at the very end. Lots of power. Maybe a little bit too much steering lock. Could have been a little bit less, maybe a little bit more minimum speed, a little bit earlier into the corner. But most important thing is watch my brake trace. You can see that my brake trace, what we're looking at here, and don't obsess about your brake trace either. It's more about how you actually rotate the car than anything. But I want you to look at this. I am coming in, braking at 100%, holding, and then as I turn in, it's something more like this. Make it a little bit jaggedy because it's not perfect. Very linear down. Maybe hold a tiny bit at the very bottom. If not, then you're going to drop off kind of quickly like that, right? And then immediately switching on to power, and I'm going to be hitting it hard, trying to get as much power as I possibly can to power out. While Ethan, on the other hand, and this is going to be a perfect comparison between the two, braking hard, really good, maybe a little bit early, holding it, realizing, oh shoot, I'm scared, I'm gonna not lock up, sorry. I'm going to go straight on from holding too much brakes. Drops it, then does this. Manages on the bottom, holds it way longer than he needs to, and then finally, he does this. He kind of does that. Now, I want you to look at the brake traces, and I want you to tell me, sorry, I'm going to tell you one specific thing that is making a major difference in the way you're doing this. And it's all about confidence in the car and car control. Mine over here, if you look at the spacing in between these two and the spacing in between these two, look how much I am doing in the mid corner. I'm still rotating. I'm still pushing the car on the exit. I'm always doing something with the car. Even if I'm coasting, I'm still doing something with the car. Ethan, on the other hand, he has it on the limit on the initial, right? So switch to, let's say green is on the limit, okay? So immediately on the limit, you know, maybe a little bit messing up a little bit here. Could have been gained a little bit more mid corner. But then as soon as I get back on power, I'm right back there. With Ethan, it's going to be semi on the limit, and then nothing until he gets here. And on the limit is like, you know, that's just a generalized term, obviously, but you understand what I'm trying to say when I say that, yes? So, generally speaking, this is going to be the most in-depth corner I'm going to go into, but this is a reoccurring theme of not having that confidence, that gap right here. That's what I'm mainly seeing in almost every single corner. But from now on, it's just going to be primarily line differences I cover. So coming in here with Ethan, we're going to continue to go yada 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 with his no audio because he's a bum. And you can see picks his breaking point fairly nice. Once again, drops it really quickly, solid, but then again kills off a lot of his minimum speed, misses the apex, and then he's scared to get on power. Wait, see how he gets power much later than if we go to mine. I'm not sure how much it's going to fast forward. I'm scared. Okay, press and hold. Oh, okay, cool, whatever. And see, similar breaking point. Turn in a little bit earlier, drop it a little bit quick, not quicker, but earlier. Holding a little bit more than him mid-corner. But in the end, I'm also rotating it more than him. We end up at about the same minimum speed, but I have much more confidence on pressing the power and shooting out. Of course, then again, this is absolutely my worst corner in this entire lap that I did in this specific lap. There's at least maybe like 5 kph more through there. So even on my bad lap, I'm tying him with my minimum speed, and I'm still carrying more confidence through here. This is one of the biggest corners I want to point out real quick, is look how wide Ethan goes, completely off the line, and he tries to do a very U-shaped line, right? So coming back to this, let's look at, I'm probably not going to draw this very well at all, but we can do, let's say the corner looks something like this, right? Something like this. It's a very long shaped corner, right? So with my racing line, what I'm generally doing is I'm all the way over here already, and I'm going to continue to stick to this inside. Stick to this inside. A little bit of brakes right here to really hug this inside, almost V off a little bit, and then come back out. And okay, well, I didn't draw this very well, but you're going to come back out wide and then try to bring it back to the left for the next corner, right? What Ethan is doing in the red is he thinks he has much more downforce than he does. He's in the same spot I am, but instead of hugging the inside and saying, you know what, I'm going to trust the mechanical grip, I'm going to get as much rotation in mid-corner so I can get a good exit, he's thinking, I have more grip than I have less grip than I think I do. So he's going to try to bring this out a little bit more than me and really, like, almost U it off like this. And what that's doing is now not only is he not set up for this exit right here, because either he has to overslow on the exit to get back over, or he's going to go wide, but he's also losing, this is going to be very sloppy, but he is losing critical track distance right here, losing so much time just by going wider and covering more ground. And then not only that, but yes, he will have a higher minimum speed mid-corner, most likely, probably not, because he's a chud, so I doubt it, but let's say hypothetically he should have a higher minimum speed than me, but then he'll be slower than me all throughout this and all throughout this exit. And I'm sure if we watch this back, we'll see something similar. Let's see his minimum speed here. Throws it in. 159, 158, 159. Drive it much harder in. 170, 162. 162. So I am slightly higher than him, but I also have a much more stable line. I'm actually able to force the power on exit and get a much better exit, right? Coming into here, Ethan's still fighting the car to get back to the left. Just barely makes it. Fine. Once again, does that weird dropping thing where he doesn't trust the car to rotate and drops it very quickly, and then he holds just a little bit, and then he puts on the steering lock. So he's not actually rotating the car. He's holding the brake, stopping, doing a tiny bit of rotation, and then slamming the car in, trying to use the front grip. Right here, holds a little bit too much steering, but it's okay. It's not hurting him too much. Coming into this corner, actually, let's look at how I do this. Braking hard. Much smoother actually using the rotation. Could have used a little bit more on the top end, but it's okay. A little bit of a slide on exit, and I could have gone way wider. I definitely lost time right there. Ethan coming into here, honestly pretty good. Maybe a little bit early, definitely early on brakes. Turns in early as well. Could have used a little bit more curb, and he uses second gear. For me, brake a little bit later than him. Use first gear, also a little bit early on the turn in, but I use much more curb. Okay, this is another thing. You see how I throw it in with, let's watch this back. See how oh my god. Watch how I throw it in with a little bit of power, then I drop it and get the rotation. Ethan, on the other hand, is doing a very different approach with coming in, nice trail braking, throws it in, and keeps the power super pinned as he almost drives it out into the corner, which is okay, but then he overdoes it. And then now he's all the way on this outside, and he's struggling to get power down in second gear, and then he's not able to use that exit. While me, I have a much less, I haven't been thrown as deep into the corner. I can get a straighter wheel. Honestly, I probably could have ran second like him and gotten an even better exit and used all of this exit right here and gained more track to use. Same thing right here. This one, you kind of have to be on and off the brakes a little bit, and just a little bit held on the inside. Primary difference is, for me, I am doing this, throwing it in, trusting the car, and then really using the traction on exit, while Ethan kind of comes in, scared of it, then he manages with the throttle. And I've taught him this as a safety mechanism, too, which is probably not very good. It's a good learning tool, but he overuses it now, where he brakes, and if he's scared of sliding on the inside, his first instinct is to put a little bit of power to balance the car out, keep it nice and smooth, keep the minimum speed high, get a feeling for it, and then go. He's not at the level yet where he's able to confidently say, I'm going to trust the car to either use a little bit of brakes or just coast, because I've already rotated it correctly. Well, of course, in my lap, I didn't rotate it perfectly, obviously. I was still holding a little bit mid-corner. Ethan is super struggling with this, having to balance out with some understeer in the mid-corner and overslowing initially so he can make this right here. He then also misses out on this curb right here where it can pull him in and take a tighter line. So watch this. I take a much tighter line when I hit brakes compared to when he hits the brakes. Look at where we are on track. He would be out here. I'm in here. And I take a much tighter line, save all that track distance. I'm able to cut back. Could have used a little bit more on the inside like Luke Whitehead in his video. And I track out to exit. Could use a little bit more power on exit. See right here, he's getting pretty good rotation, actually. It's a little bit snappy, but it's there. Gets good on power and a little bit sliding on exit. Could use a little bit more exit curb. Once again, he goes super wide and once again exaggerates the line. He's thinking about an exit, super like exit focused, and he's not thinking about the understeer in the car. So for me, I come back a little bit more inwards and I throw it in pretty deep and I focus on a much tighter line that while still getting a good exit, while Ethan comes out super wide, then cuts back in and gets a good exit. Something in between what I and Ethan did would probably be the sweet spot because I exaggerated mine and he exaggerated his a little bit. But you can see he does get a good exit with second gear, and I get a very, very good entry with an okay exit in first and second gear. So it's just little differences like that where the third sector is so-so. You can kind of pick your own poison with that. But generally speaking, obviously there's a technical optimal way to do it. But that is the generalized breakdown. I wanted to keep this kind of short, even though I really didn't after all that. But that is the generalized breakdown that I wanted to do between the two of them. But yeah, that's for the most part it for this video. I'm really, really excited to make this. I really wanted to make this to not only help Ethan, but also to just explain this. And like, I thought it was a really cool opportunity and to learn a few things and to like analyze my own lap as well, and help some other people. So if it did help you, it'd be freaking awesome, yo. If you liked it or something, you know, please, pretty please. And then, yeah, I hope it helped you a little bit. Joe is playing Vampire Survivors, apparently. Or Firefox. William Joseph Folsom. That's his full name, by the way. You're welcome. He's not gonna like that. Anyways, thank you for watching. I'll see y'all, hopefully, maybe later if I make another one. Bye-bye.